This is CBC Here and Now.
We now have 3 confirmed cases associated with the school.
Alert level 4 for communities in southwestern Newfoundland.
And vaccines distribution ramps up in the province. The latest on COVID-19 just ahead.
Well, that area of low pressure is still sitting offshore. It's getting closer, and it's also bringing the risk of some accumulating snow for parts of Labrador.
We will not go to a bargaining table with a gun to our head.
That is not good faith bargaining.
Shot across the bow, public service unions warn government to keep their hands off negotiated contracts. Could this province see protests like in 2016 as the government grapples with the financial crisis? Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Peter Cowan.
Those stories just ahead, but we start this evening with some major COVID-19 developments.
That's right. Part of the province is going into lockdown and there are new testing rules for travelers. But let's start on the West Coast, where there are 2 new cases that are tied to a school there. Today, Dr. Janice Fitzgerald says communities from South Branch, south to Port aux Basques, and then east to Rose Blanche will go into alert level 4. There isn't any evidence of community spread, but they want time to do more testing, and they want to see if there are other cases and reduce the chance of any further spread. So, just a reminder, what does alert level 4 mean? Well, it means you shouldn't be interacting with people outside of your household. Official gatherings like weddings and funerals are limited to 10. Restaurants are closed for in-person dining.
This looks like a B117 cluster, and so we want to make sure, we've all seen how quickly that can spread, so we want to make sure that we're finding those cases and that we can limit the amount of onward spread in the area. So we think, for a short period of time, we give public health time to do its job, time to get that testing done, to see where we are.
Including those 2 cases on the West Coast, the province announced 10 new cases of COVID-19 today. 7 of those are from travel within Canada. The risk of travel has the province bringing in new measures. Anyone who enters the province and is able to isolate alone or in a separate space from other people in the house will get tested once after day 11. If someone's isolating with others in the household, they'll get tested as soon as they arrive and then again after more than a week. This new testing won't apply to rotational workers or essential workers who've already had a requirement for testing, but also have looser isolation.
We expect that we will continue to see a steady influx of cases from travel in the coming weeks, and we all need to remain vigilant. In the coming months, we should start to see the balance shift in our favor as more people in our country and our province are vaccinated and protected against COVID-19.
Speaking of vaccinations, who is eligible to book the shot? Well, that expanded today. In total now, 200,000 people in Newfoundland and Labrador have had their first dose. If you're over 40, you can now book a COVID-19 vaccine. And there are plans to open up even more groups. By Friday, anyone 30 or over will be able to book their shot, and by Monday, the 17th, anyone 12 years or older can book a vaccine. They're still promising that everyone who wants one will receive their dose by the end of June. But what about AstraZeneca? The province now says it won't give out the vaccine as first doses now that anyone 40 or over can get one of the mRNA vaccines from Pfizer or Moderna. The province tells Here and Now there are about 6,000 doses of AstraZeneca that haven't been used. They're still deciding on whether they'll be giving those out to people as second doses or if new research allows them to give out a second dose from a different vaccine. Dr. Fitzgerald insists anyone who got AstraZeneca shouldn't regret it. They got a safe and effective vaccine.
They ended up getting it 2 to 3 weeks earlier than they likely would have gotten it. They would have had that protection a little bit sooner. They are now, getting a really good immune response to that, and so can feel that full benefit of one dose of a vaccine. So, I don't think there's any need to feel remorseful at this point.
Well, to other news now, the Newfoundland and Labrador Folk Festival will hold some in-person concerts this summer. Last May, they canceled the annual festival because of the pandemic, but later moved to an all-digital and weekly version. The Folk Festival is normally held in Bannerman Park each July, where 4,000 people attend over a number of days. Erin Whitney is the executive director of the Newfoundland and Labrador Folk Arts Society. It organizes the festival. She says they're still nailing down the final details. She says there will be some digital offerings, and this summer they'll also pepper indoor and outdoor concerts throughout the month of July.
Of course, these are all going to be very small shows, very small scale performances and audiences, so we did want to make sure there was still a way to reach a large number of people. So we'll be going again with the digital festival. We're going to put it on in the fall this year, so we have lots of time to record all of our material, and also so we're encouraging people to get outside in the summer, right? So maybe in the fall they'll be more likely to want to have a sit on the couch and a cup of tea and watch the folk festival then.
Well, the last couple of days I've been talking an awful lot about an area of low pressure sitting offshore. We're in basically a holding pattern at this point with this area of low pressure. We do have some showers making their way across the Avalon right now and then into parts of the west coast as well as up across Labrador right now. Now it's as that area of low pressure continues to get closer, I'm going to show you the future tracker over the next little bit. So what's going to happen is at least the models are pointing at snow potential through the overnight tonight. The temperatures around Cartwright have dropped down to about 1 degree now. They've been sitting around 1 to 2 for the past couple of days. But as that area of low pressure moves closer, we're getting lots of precipitation with this, and it looks like it's going to fall as some snow in the higher elevations and further inland. If you're towards the coast, you're likely still going to see rain in the mix, but Environment Canada has issued a snowfall warning from Black Tickle through to Makovic, anticipating somewhere between 10 to 15 centimeters by Thursday evening. And like I said, that will likely be in those higher elevations, but I'll get into more details on the forecast when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Closing arguments were made in Supreme Court today at RNC Officer Doug Snellgrove's sexual assault trial. This is the third trial for the suspended police officer. Judges' errors upended 2 previous trials. Here now's Jeremy Eaton was in court today, and he joins us live now. And first, a warning, some viewers may find some details in Jeremy's report disturbing and inappropriate for a younger audience. Now, Jeremy, what did the lawyers have to say?
So, Anthony, today was the last day for lawyers to make their arguments to the jury. Now, the defense, they focused on reasonable doubt, and the Crown focused on trust and consent. Doug Snellgrove's lawyer told the jury that it's not his job to prove Snellgrove innocent. It's the Crown's job to prove Snellgrove's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, Snellgrove's lawyer, Randy Piercy, spent about 30 minutes speaking to the jury, poking holes in the complainant's testimony. She was too drunk to consent to sex, but she was able to make the decision to go home. She then directed the on-duty officer how to get to her house, and when she was locked out, she was able to climb through a small window. But the Crown's Lloyd Strickland says all this comes down to trust and consent. Now, here is where it gets a little bit graphic. The complainant, Strickland says, was too drunk to consent to have sex. She passed out during intercourse and woke up with Snellgrove on top of her. He also argues that Snellgrove was in a position of power and authority. The complainant would not have let a stranger into her home, but she did so because Snellgrove was in uniform and on duty. Now, for those not familiar with this high-profile story, it happened back in 2014. Officer Snellgrove picked up a woman in downtown St. John's and offered to drive her home. That woman testified that she felt safer in his police car than in a cab. So what happened next is at the heart of this trial. Within a short period of time of being dropped off, she and Snellgrove were having sex. So the first trial back in 2017 found Snellgrove not guilty, which sparked public outrage and protests. That verdict was overturned due to a judge's error. A second trial was held in 2020, but that ended in a mistrial, again due to judge's error. So, for the third time, the complainant sat in the courtroom facing Snellgrove, tearfully testifying for a third time. Earlier in the case, she told the court, "I don't want money, I want justice." She told the court that she did not intend on having sex that night, and she doesn't remember consenting to sex. Now, Snellgrove described the scene that night as confusing. He's been suspended without pay by the RNC since the first trial. So now with these final closing arguments now in the books, the next step is for the jury to get their instructions from the judge, and that's something that's slated to happen tomorrow morning. Reporting live for Here and Now, I'm Jeremy Eaton in St. John's.
In other court news, Paul Connolly is getting closer to being sentenced for manslaughter in the 2016 death of Stephen Miller in Conception Bay South. Lawyers on the case were in Supreme Court this morning to set a date for a sentencing hearing. Connolly pleaded guilty to manslaughter in 2018, but was originally charged with first-degree murder. In July 2017, Chelsea Lucas and Calvin Kenny also pleaded guilty to manslaughter for Miller's death, as well as arson, robbery, and forcible confinement. The pair were sentenced to 12.5 years. Both men appealed. Calvin Kenny died in a New Brunswick prison, and Lucas's appeal was rejected. Connolly's case is expected back in court on May the 25th.
Well, there will not be a recount in the district of St. John's East, Kitty-Vitty. The NDP's application for a recount of votes has been dismissed in court. So what does that mean for the leader of the NDP who lost her seat in that district? Here Now's Mark Quinn explains.
Justice Donald Burridge handed down his written decision early this afternoon. He said the NDP's evidence wasn't strong enough to warrant a recount. Burridge wrote, "No evidence is offered with respect to a single ballot allegedly counted in error. Second, there is no evidence that one or more of the ballots accepted ought to have been rejected." Outside the courthouse, the NDP's lawyer and the lawyer for Liberal John Abbott reacted to the decision.
We respect the decision that came out. The judge is limited by the legislation, and I think we've all come to realize that the Newfoundland and Labrador Elections Act is a severely outdated act in need of some serious overhaul.
Well, obviously we're very pleased with the ruling today. I think the big comment that comes out of this is, we're before a court of law now. I think everybody should be careful about what they read, because ultimately, when we get inside this building, it's going to be the facts and the evidence that prevails.
Reporters asked the NDP's Alison Coffin if this loss means she'll step down from the leadership of the party.
Absolutely not. I am the leader of the New Democratic Party. I have the full faith of my party. I will carry on.
The decision clears the way for John Abbott, who won the district of St. John's East Kitty-Vitty by 53 votes in March, to be sworn in as an MHA.
My expectation is that he is now able to take his seat once he's sworn in.
The NDP says it's now focusing on its other court application to have the St. John's East Kitty-Vitty election results thrown out and a by-election called in that district. That controverted election application is due back in court on May 21st, but lawyers say a decision on that matter is many months away. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Doctors and the provincial government are back at the bargaining table trying to hammer out a new contract. The Newfoundland and Labrador Medical Association says talks started in December but were put on hold during the extended election. The NLMA president says that doctors are facing a number of issues and they want to get a new agreement as quickly as possible. She says there are more than 90,000 people in this province without a family doctor, and there are shortages in some specialty areas as well. The NLMA says it's hard to put a number on the increase in pay doctors are asking for, since some are salaried and others are paid on a fee-for-service basis. Some rural areas are without doctors, she says, and none to fill in for locums.
Over the years, what we've seen here is a progressively aging population with very complex healthcare needs, and of course we also have shortages in a lot of other specialty areas, which means family doctors here are actually dealing with quite complex patients on a day-to-day basis. That system was never meant for physicians to provide care in the manner that they do today, and it's made it very difficult to attract young doctors into community practices. Most of our graduating physicians now don't set up a family practice like people would have seen years ago. Most of these physicians now go into the emergency department or work in the hospital.
In a statement, the Department of Health says they value doctors, but they won't negotiate in public. Well, to Gander now. The pandemic's been bad, but the Gander airport thinks things are going to get worse before they get better. The airport has seen a dramatic drop in passengers and flights since the COVID-19 pandemic, and today it shared financial results from 2020. Revenues are down about $4 million and aren't expected to fully rebound for more than 5 years. The airport says the drop in travel is having a big impact throughout central Newfoundland.
problems suddenly arose. Couldn't get locums in for Halifax, so it affected the delivery of health care. Essential workers were adding 7.5 to 8 hour return journey onto their trip west. Core samples, mining sector in Central is on bust, couldn't get those out, and all kinds of cargo problems that had to be navigated. So, like, guys, this is the lifeline.
The airport has cut back to save money, but it will still be moving ahead with plans to restore the famous International Lounge.
There's a tendency when you get hit with financial crisis to want to sort of cradle the piggy bank in your arms and, you know, preside over it with a baseball bat. There still needs to be an assumption that that the airport is in a position of growth at some point. And the reason we embarked on the lounge project in particular was because we had 260 bus tours the summer before. And frankly, I wanted to get a better product. And we weren't really happy as an airport authority that the community didn't have access to the space.
Now, before we go to commercial, we want to mark that the province has lost a founding member of the wonderful Grand Band.
And a pioneer of St. John's rock and roll.
I didn't get an invitation from CBC either, nor did I get an invitation from the ALSPU Hall.
I guess with all the work you've done here at the Hall, you don't need an invitation. You probably got your own seat upstairs with your name engraved on a brass plate, do you?
Like ducks.
Well, that's Brian Hennessey at the Newfoundland and Labrador Arts Council Awards back in 1998. And there he is on Skipper and Company. He's the one playing a ghost there. As a musician, Hennessey was known for playing piano and electric bass, playing alongside Ron Hines, Kelly Russell, Sandy Morris, and the rest.
And Hennessey also made a name for himself as a local actor, appearing on stage and in TV film productions such as Republic of Doyle and The Adventure of Faustus Bidgood. Brian Hennessey died last Friday. He was 72.
Beautiful evening out there right now. Some peaks of sun as we head towards sunset. We're looking at an unsettled day again tomorrow for parts of the province with some snow. I'll get into those details coming up.
Last night on Here and Now, we talked about what to do with the old Grace nursing residence if it ever comes down. Maybe affordable housing is the answer. That's tomorrow on Here and Now.
It was a gorgeous day today in the east, certainly for the first half of the afternoon. Temperatures soared to about 10, 11 degrees as your daytime highs today. 9 degrees in Bonavista, Vista, and then those single-digit highs, but a little above, well, 8 degrees for Corner Brook, and then we've got those temperatures anywhere from 3 to 7 across Labrador. Temperatures still sitting pretty nice for most of eastern Newfoundland. However, those temperatures have dropped in the west down to 3 degrees right now in Corner Brook, and 3 degrees, same thing for Makovic. Now taking a look at the current satellite and radar, that area of low pressure leading to some showers and some clouds. They did move in through most of the afternoon. And then we are seeing some showers right now. For the west coast at the moment, we're looking at showers, and even in some of those higher elevations, the risk of some flurries as we head through the overnight tonight. And there's a look at those showers skirting through the metro area right now. As far as the future tracker for tonight, that area of low pressure that I've been talking about over the last couple of days is going to move closer, and it's also bringing that risk of some snow for Labrador, a little bit more than we have been seeing. It's generally been falling as rain, but that risk in the higher elevations as these temperatures cool down a little bit to see, and then further inland as well, to see some accumulating snow as we head through the overnight tonight. Now for the island, the chance of showers will continue for most of us, and in those higher elevations again along the west coast, inland areas for the northern peninsula too. You may see a few flurries in the mix, not anticipating any accumulation, but that risk is certainly still there, and that low is going to continue to spin as we head into the early morning hours. So Environment Canada has issued a snowfall warning from Black Tickle through to Makovic. Again, 10 to 15 centimeters is possible by tomorrow evening, but that should fall in the higher elevations and further inland areas along the coast. Will likely see that mix in. You may see 5, maybe 6 or 7 centimeters, but I'm thinking you're likely not going to see as much as 15 centimeters for those areas. Tonight's forecast looking at temperatures taking us anywhere from 2 to 4 degrees for the island. The winds will be anywhere from 20 to 40 kilometers per hour out of the northwest or west. And then across Labrador, you're looking at temperatures anywhere from -3 in the west through to 1 or 2 degrees for coastal areas. Now, as we head through tomorrow, that area of low pressure is still very much in place. It's going to take a while, but it is slowly starting to move out. However, into the afternoon tomorrow, anticipating that the snow should change over to rain for coastal areas of Labrador. That flurry mix still potentially in play for tomorrow morning for the west coast as well as the northern peninsula. And then areas for the southern portion of the island looking beautiful tomorrow. Lots of sunshine in play. We may see a few clouds develop earlier on in the day with the chance of showers, but that should clear as we head through the afternoon as the area of low pressure pulls that cloud cover with it. And as far as Lab West goes, you're still looking at the potential for a few flurries through the day. Taking a look at the forecast for tomorrow, temperature-wise, anywhere from 6 to 9 degrees for the Avalon, and then 7 to 8 degrees through Clarenville and Bonavista. Vista. The winds will stay a little breezy again tomorrow. Westerly is about 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. But the south coast looking at double digits, Marystown at about 11 degrees. Through central, generally staying cloudy through the day. Potential for a few showers in the mix for Twillingate and Gander through the afternoon. Again, the south coast staying a little more chilly, 5 to 8 degrees, but you are looking at sunshine through the day. And in those higher elevations, certainly along the Long Range Mountains, you're still looking at the potential for some flurries towards Corner Brook. That'll happen in the morning, and then you should see sunshine through the afternoon, but daytime highs not reaching, not as nice, only about 5 to 6 degrees. For the southeast, like I said, that rain will move in, or at least the potential for snow will change over to rain. As we head through the afternoons, your temperatures jump up to about 4 to 6 degrees, and then staying with that potential for snow for the northern portions of Labrador. Maybe a few showers in the mix for the morning, but overall, that's what you're looking at. And then for Happy Valley, Goose Bay, 5 degrees, Lab City 7, and you're finally going to see a relief of some of that precipitation. So that's a look at tomorrow's forecast. We'll look ahead towards the weekend when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, when COVID hit Atlantic Canada for a while, it was toilet paper, and then it was hand sanitizer, and now, at least in Nova Scotia, The shortage is beer cans. Craft brewers there say they're having a hard time getting their hands on aluminum cans. Matthew Moore now with that story.
An aluminum can shortage has Cape Breton's Big Spruce Brewing looking for creative ways to get their beer to consumers, including reusing cans they purchased from Ontario.
There you go. It's apparently a good Sunday in this can. I don't even know what the brewery is.
White says he received about 60,000 cans from a provider, and that's enough for now, but won't last him too long.
Sure, the biggest buyers in the world are buying up all the cans, and the can suppliers are paying attention naturally to their biggest clients, and level 2, level 3 buyers like ourselves and pretty much everybody else out here in Nova Scotia get left in the dust.
White says year over year, keg sales to bars are down 70%. Can sales are up 30%. He's making close to the same amount of beer, but fewer cans is impacting operations. In Halifax, Two Crows Brewing is also feeling the crunch.
Suppliers would tell us they had cans and, give us this price, and then the next day turn around and say, well, we have half that amount and they're 2 cents more per can and things like that. That just didn't really make sense to me.
Both brewers have found Band-Aids to carry them through the spring. However, the summer months are busy for breweries. An extended lockdown could push demand higher than many breweries are able to handle. In the meantime, the search for cans continues.
To see if there's a way we can source another 50, 75,000 kitchen party decorated cans to meet the rest of summer demand until that big shipment from China comes in.
Matthew Moore, CBC News, Sydney.
A lockdown and widespread testing on the southwest coast. My interview with the medical officer of health about why she thinks this is needed. Part of the southwest coast of Newfoundland is headed into lockdown. There have been 3 cases tied to Boulanger Memorial School. Dr. Monica Dutt is the medical officer of health for the area, and she joins us. Thanks for being here.
Hi, thank you.
There are 3 cases there, but they're connected. In the past, we've needed some evidence of community transmission in order to lock down. So why are you doing it now?
So I guess just to clarify, so we've had a number of people who have been diagnosed with COVID-19 in a certain area, and part of the investigation has involved the school. The reason why we wanted to take this measure is because of the nature of the investigation. We found that there may have been times where people are being diagnosed after they may have been infectious, and so it's hard to exactly say when exactly they may have had contacts that were with other people during the time they were infectious. That being said, through our investigation, we haven't identified a particular specific concern that's making us worry that there may be many contacts we don't know about. At the same time, given that piece of the investigation, it seemed like it would be a cautious and important measure to get a sense of whether there had been any spread within the community. As of yet, we have not seen that, but of course, that's why we're doing both the broader testing within the school community as well as the broader testing in the community at a larger scale.
How concerned are you that we're seeing 3 cases tied to a school?
Somewhat in that, well, I guess first the reassuring piece is that each person has been connected to someone else who is positive or someone who has traveled. So that is the very reassuring piece of this. And I do want to be a bit careful about saying people are connected to schools. So we've had a situation where there was someone who may have been in school while infectious. We're doing that investigation. As of now, we have not noted that there has been transmission within the school. There have been other school-aged individuals who have come back as positive. At the same time, it seems that measures have been in place, and we have not yet been able to say that there is transmission within the school. And even should that occur, sometimes that may happen. Right now, it's been in close contacts or people who are very much connected to someone who is positive.
You're asking anyone in the area to get tested even if they don't have symptoms. So what sort of testing clinics do you have in place?
So I guess first, of course, if people have symptoms, those are people we always want to make sure do get tested. So indicate that when you sign up to be tested. And on that broader asymptomatic testing, we are doing our usual PCR testing, which is the testing that goes to St. John's. If you are symptomatic, we will also try to do a rapid test to give us some information more quickly. But with this testing, what we're hoping to do is have a good baseline of whether there has been any transmission in the community that we haven't detected through this investigation yet. And I think this will be very helpful to either say, no, there hasn't been, or potentially if we do pick up anyone who is positive, then of course we'll continue to follow that and investigate and do what needs to be done to try to make sure we can get to the end of this investigation.
What are you going to be looking for a week from now to decide whether to lift the restrictions or whether they need to continue?
So first, it's very much working with Dr. Fitzgerald, as this is a special measures order that she's put in place. But what we'll be looking for is whether in the next few days we do see either anyone that we find has COVID-19 who may not be connected to someone we've already identified. That would be one piece of it if we start to see that. That would be the main thing we'd be looking for. There may yet still be people who are positive, who are close contacts. We're continuing to identify those people and have them tested and ask them to quarantine. So there may still be people who are positive, but it's that added layer if we start to see people who aren't connected to the investigation so far. That would cause some concern, and then we'd need to take that into account with the special measures orders and the restrictions that are in place.
Dr. Dutt, thanks for joining us. I appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thank you very much.
An independent report on the global response to the pandemic says it could have been prevented and millions of lives saved. The World Health Organization commissioned the review, and the co-chair, former Liberian President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, says precious time was lost containing the spread of COVID-19.
Despite clear warnings, far too many countries believed
it would not affect them. And they adopted, in effect, a wait-and-see approach.
Well, the report criticized organizations and governments for not acting quicker. It says the WHO should have declared the new coronavirus outbreak in China an international emergency sooner, and that countries failed to take strong measures to halt the spread. The report calls for bold reforms to the WHO, such as a transparent global system to track disease outbreaks to stop the next pandemic. Well, according to Moya Green, it's going to take a big effort by everyone to bring the province's massive deficit under control. Her economic recovery report recommends tax increases, funding and spending cuts, even privatizing some services. But one particular change may be the most difficult. Green says government has to, as she calls it, re-examine its relationship with unions. She wants a salary freeze, changes to the public service pension, even a reconfiguring of which employees should be allowed to be in unions. And she says if a negotiated settlement isn't possible, then the changes just might have to be legislated. Dean Ingram is the president of the NLTA, which represents teachers in our province, and Jerry Earle is the president of NAPE, which represents 27,000 public and private sector employees. Some tough medicine being prescribed there. Your initial thoughts on those recommendations, gentlemen, starting with you, Jerry Earle.
First of all, Anthony, not surprising coming from the individual that authored this report. When you look at our track record right across Canada and now in the UK, it doesn't surprise me. Targets are often put on the backs of frontline workers. Frontline workers are often used to the tough medicine, and they have been the ones that again appear to be targeted throughout this report.
Okay, as for teachers, Dean Ingram, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think the association and its members recognize that there is a financial issue in this province. And the province teachers and the association are willing to work to address that. That being said, I think we have to recognize that the public sector, the teachers have certainly paid their part over the years as well. I can use myself, my example in my career. This is year 29 for me. And for 8 of the past 14 years, teachers have had zeros.
I want to bring Jerry Earle back into this because I think it's in many fresh memories that thousands of people protested in the streets in 2016 when then Premier Dwight Ball tried to make some budget cuts of his own. How different, Jerry Earle, is the temperament among your members now in 2021, given the severity of our financial situation?
Temperament is not much different because what's offensive, when we talk about a union, what a union is when frontline workers that come together to have a common voice. This is Newfoundlanders and Labradorians that have contributed their entire work life to this province, and the vast majority are heir and very interested in the future of this province. And workers have always done their part, but they cannot be singled out and blamed. The workers didn't get us in the mess that we're in. Policymakers and past governments and big business got us in the state that we're in today.
I think both of you, you send the message out that teachers and public servants are all willing to do their part, but it's true that public workers may not be responsible, but taxpayers and the raises that some of you have managed to achieve, this is all contributing parts of the problem. So what specifically are either of your unions actually willing to do to be part of the solution? Can you name one sacrifice, only one, that teachers might be willing to make to contribute to the common good? I mean, teachers try to make students become good citizens and lifelong learners who contribute to society. So why not treat this as an inquiry-based learning exercise for your union? And instead of asking for wage increases, think of a solution that teachers can offer.
Well, I think right off the offset is that to prejudge what the next round of negotiations will bring forward, I think would be presumptive. We are always willing to sit at the negotiating table, and our members have made sacrifices over the years, and we are always willing to engage in good faith bargaining for the betterment of our members, but at the same time for the betterment of the province. That's a process that needs to unfold. One of the biggest concerns that came out of the Moya Green Report as it pertained to labor relations is the reference point that we will go through this process and at the end of the day, initiate legislation if you're not willing to play ball. That's what I took from it. That is not good faith bargaining.
What are your thoughts, Jerry Earle, on that whole notion of legislating? Because I don't hear from you or Mr. Ingram that you're willing to even talk about wage rollbacks, wage freezes, 4-day work weeks, any of that kind of thing. So what's your sense that, okay, if you don't want to accept any of these measures, we'll legislate them?
Not surprising coming from the privateer in the United Kingdom that she wants to divest the public service down to her buddies in big business. The only group in this entire Green Report as a threat directed at them is frontline Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, not unions. You got to remember, unions are frontline workers, Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. The only ones under a threat in this province are those that deliver the invaluable services. Tell that to the licensed practical nurses and registered nurses and PCAs that were in snowstorms the winter in swab clinics. Tell that to them now they're doing the vaccinations, that are working short in long-term care for them. Tell that to the paramedics that are in red alert every day, that they're not doing their part. We have continuously went to the bargaining table, as Dean have said, negotiated fairly and respectfully. But I can tell you now, we will not go to a bargaining table. I said to this Minister Cody on Friday to her face, we will not go to a bargaining table with a gun to our head. That's not on for frontline Newfoundlanders and Labradorians that we represent. We will cooperate. We have already, as Dean said, have negotiated collective agreements with zeros in them, and big business attacked us. We gave up severance pay, or frontline workers did, and big business attacked us. What do they want?
I don't think anybody wants to see anybody go to a bargaining table with a gun to their head, but I guess the problem is you're going to a bargaining table where there are no bags of money on the table. And I'll ask you what I asked Dean Ingram. What specifically might Nate be willing to do to sacrifice to help the province with the situation we're in?
Anthony, bargaining is not all about what are you prepared to give up. There are different ways, and Dean have alluded to it, and other labour leaders. There's ways we can do things in this province. Frontline workers have never been listened to. We have offered suggestions to this current government and the previous government when Premier Davis was there, Premier Ball was there, and most recently Premier Furry. Suggestions for frontline workers, they're dismissed. They're not listened to. But if I'm a leader of a big business or I'm Moya Green, they're all ears.
Now, I know both of you will say you won't negotiate in public, and there are good reasons for that, but I wonder if it doesn't contribute to your enemies, or your opponents rather, painting you both, your unions, as paddling towards the waterfall instead of trying to paddle in the same direction to solve things. I mean, what would you say to people? Say, look, if you look at the percentage of tax dollars that go to fund teachers and members of NAPE, we just can't afford it. And whether you like it or not, both of your unions have got to find ways to give something up. In the course of this interview, neither one of you has offered a single concrete example of something you'd be willing to compromise on. So we should just take it on faith you'll do this behind closed doors? Dean Ingram?
Well, again, that's, as you mentioned, you don't negotiate in public. And again, to Jerry's point, is that we have had discussions with Minister Cody as recently as last week, where we had some discussions about a number of things. And we are always willing to enter, but I just want to put this out there. One of the hallmarks that Premier Furey and his government indicate as being a way to economic growth is to attracting immigrants to this province. We need immigrants in this province, full stop. One of the biggest determinants as whether that immigrant will stay with their families and become a productive member of this province's economy is a degree to which their children are being supported and having their needs met. If this province is not at least competitive with their Atlantic counterparts and not providing the services that their children need, the likelihood of those immigrants staying in the province and growing the economy becomes compromised.
Let me wind this down by sharing an observation and a question with you. My sense watching Moya Green was it felt something like the 1980s and early 90s, and it made me think of a future in which both of you may be leading massive demonstrations and possibly strikes. How likely is that scenario given what you have absorbed from the Green Report? We'll start with you, Dean Ingram.
Again, right now, these are a series of recommendations that are brought forward. Premier Furey has clearly indicated that these are recommendations that may or may not be implemented. What I would suggest is that some of these recommendations do not lead to the economic growth as envisioned, and certainly do not benefit the education system as envisioned.
Jerry Earl, what are your thoughts about labor unrest in the future? Any sense that we'll be seeing you and your members taking the streets as you've done before?
We've done it before, but again, Anthony, in fairness, I know Nate negotiates for 96 collective agreements in my term. Since I came to office in 2015, there's been but one dispute, and that's when the employer locked out frontline workers. It was never Nate that actually took that action. So it takes two to tango, basically. So when employers treat frontline workers unfairly, there's a real possibility that frontline workers will push back because they are Newfoundlanders and Labradorians that live there. It's ironic in this report that Moya Green talks about the lack of transparency, referencing Justice LeBlanc. The only thing that lacked transparency was this whole entire process that came to these recommendations. We knew nothing till this was dropped collectively in our laps last week as supposed recommendations that we're going to be consulted on now that the recommendations are concluded. We should have, Newfoundlanders should have been consulted from day one. Not once a report is dropped in our collective lap with multiple austerity measures pointed directly at Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, and once again, big business gets off scot-free.
Jerry Earl and Dean Ingram, I suspect we are going to be speaking again. Thanks to both of you. Thanks for being on Here and Now. Thank you very much.
Thank you
very much.
Tommy, listen to this.
Oh, this is country music.
I first got interested in synthesizers probably when I was in junior high school, from what I remember.
I don't know if I would have released this album if it weren't for the pandemic.
I literally got just so involved with the guitar itself.
You'll be able to catch a new episode of For the Love of Music tomorrow night on Here and Now, but we've still got a bit more news to tell you about, including about some diners that have had to deal with COVID-19 restrictions. But anything goes for the Squirrels restaurant in Winnipeg.
Complete with a bar and outdoor seating. It serves drinks as well as delectable meals, but only if you have a furry coat and a bushy tail. Have a look.
My name is Carly Trashuk, and I am the owner of Squirrel Restaurant and Bar. So the squirrels can start here, have a little drink at the bar. We have a record player, you can pull up a stool, and then just follow the fence to the restaurant for their main course. So early on in the pandemic, March 2020, I saw this tweet go viral. This guy in the States had made this little tiny picnic table for squirrels, and I screenshot the image, sent it to my dad, and I said, I need this. The restaurant is a fully vegan restaurant. We have one table on the patio, which is my patio in my yard, and then we have a bar in one of the trees in my backyard. We serve little tiny meals for whatever little tiny creatures want to show up. I came up with the menu items just kind of by, turning my favorite foods into little tiny versions of themselves. So anything vegan, vegan salads, charcuterie boards are really big right now. So we do like I make little fruit and veg boards to put out, and seeds and nuts. It's very simple. I will let you in on a little secret. It's just one squirrel showing up every day. Squirrels are very territorial. This one squirrel that we've named Dennis is probably not telling anyone about this because he's hit the jackpot. Dennis looks good. I'm not overfeeding, and I'm giving him healthy options. The squirrels are not good tippers. No one is paying. I am losing money in this project. I started Squirrel's own Instagram account, and that has really taken off in the last year, which is quite hilarious. We have people from the States, all over Canada following and sending us little tiny items to be featured, so it's just hilarious.
A little nutty, but kind of cute.
I guess everyone needs an activity to keep them busy during the pandemic, and if opening a squirrel restaurant is what keeps you sane, then more power to you.
Go for it.
That may have been my most favorite story that we've seen so far. That was absolutely adorable. Let's turn our attention to the weather to look at what's going to happen over the next couple of days. We're looking ahead to Friday. It's already almost the weekend. We're looking at that area of low pressure finally pulling out, and that means it's going to take some of that rainfall with it. However, Friday is still looking a little bit unsettled for most of us. The snow potential will change over to rain for most of Labrador as we head into the afternoon on Friday, and then we will eventually see some clearing skies as we head through the first half of Saturday for the island. Now, that risk of showers will stick around for most of the day, but overall not anticipating too much in the way of showers. Maybe a few flurries again late afternoon for Saturday for coastal areas of Labrador. Now, taking a look at the temperatures for Friday, should see the double digits again for central through to eastern Newfoundland, anywhere from 10 to 13 degrees. A double-digit day for Port aux Basques at this point as well, with some sunshine. The south coast has been staying fairly sunny, and that will be the story as we head through Friday as well. For Labrador, temperatures around 4 to 7 degrees for you. Again, the risk of some flurries in the first half of the day for Cartwright. That should change over to showers into the afternoon. And then same thing on Saturday. Temperatures not moving much for you, and really not moving much for Labrador. So Lab City will finally see some sunshine through the day on Saturday, with your temperatures reaching about 8 degrees. And then for the island, another double-digit day. It looks like at this point, sun, but also the risk of some showers through the afternoon. Temperature around 13 degrees for Marystown and 11 in St. John's. After Saturday, though, it does look like those temperatures are going to dip back down to the single digits. Sunday looks, at this point, mainly cloudy. You may see a few peaks of sun, but mainly cloudy with some showers, and then showers and some sun for Monday. Again, that temperature hovering around 6 degrees. For central Newfoundland, you're looking at your temperatures about 8 to 10 degrees to round out the weekend into the beginning of next week, unsettled on Sunday and both Monday. And then for western Newfoundland, some sunshine for you on Monday. Your temperature's finally going to reach those double digits and stay there, it looks like, through Monday. For eastern Labrador, some sunshine finally on Saturday. Sunday looks beautiful, 10 degrees, and then another double-digit day on Monday, but also the risk of some showers. And then for western Labrador, sunshine for Saturday, Sunday and Monday going to be a little bit unsettled, but look, your temperatures back up to 12 to 14 degrees. Wanted to show this photo, Dead Man's Cove Beach in Harbour Breton. Thank you to Ron for that one. If you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Color of the water looks tropical.
It does.
Beautiful.
Except for the wind and the waves, which you always get a bit of that in Newfoundland and Labrador.
Okay, then. Well, that about does it for us. But Peter, I see the chattering classes talking a fair bit about Premier Fury talking tomorrow. What's up?
Yeah, we're expecting a sort of state of the province address to come from the Premier tomorrow. It's going to be released right at 6 o'clock, so right on Here and Now time. So we'll have lots to talk about tomorrow night's show for sure.
See you then. Good night.
Good night, everyone.